Hello everyone and welcome to Whisky Wednesday. Finally, after 2-ish years, maybe 18 months, I managed to get my hands on another bottle of Laphroaig Cask Strength. This is batch 11, I believe, bottled in March this year, 58.6% alcohol, and unlike the previous bottlings of Laphroaig Cask Strength I have had, I should say, because they're gone now, there are no indications on this as to if it is natural colour or if it is non-chill filtered. I'm going to assume it is non-chill filtered and is natural colour because there are nothing on the bottle or the box to say otherwise. There's no German declarations or anything like that. So we think it's natural colour, and I'm fairly sure it's non-chill filtered because why would you bottle a cask strength whiskey if it wasn't non-chill filtered? Enough about the facts though. Laphroaig Cask Strength, one of my favourite whiskies of all time. A lot of you watching, you'll love it too. I've owned batch 8 and 9. I missed out on batch 10. Picked up batch 8 on the Laphroaig website for 50 quid. Picked up batch 9 in Brooklyn, weirdly enough, on holiday last year. Was drunkenly walking past a shop in Lower Brooklyn and just saw it in the window. Was like, take my money, I want it. It was the first day I was there. I took an empty case to buy loads of bourbon, bought Laphroaig Cask Strength because it was cheaper than it would have been in the UK too. Slight change of function this year, unfortunately. When it went live on the Laphroaig website, you could only buy it in like bundles of stuff. So you could buy the bottle and like a Laphroaig rugby shirt, or the bottle and like a Laphroaig t-shirt or a baseball cap and stuff. I didn't really want any of that, I just wanted the bottle. So the whiskey shop got it in and it worked out the same price. Unfortunately, it's £20 more expensive than what it used to be. It's now £75 a bottle. Hasn't put me off too much because I'd still buy it because I know it's good. But it has impacted my overall view of the whiskey. But I suppose that's just it catching up with everything else in the whiskey world. Things are just becoming more expensive, especially cask strength whiskies. Aberlour Boone had a huge price increase. I've not seen Glenfarclas 105 for ages. Ben Romack have replaced their old cask strength with a new one, but it's still the same price, so I suppose that's the odd one out. Won't go too long into that argument, that ramble, because it's a long conversation. But it's more expensive than what it used to be, which is a shame, but they're a huge brand, so it wasn't a shock to the senses in like most ways, but it was a bit of a shame, to say the least. But the whiskey. Laphroaig 10 is made to be purposely offensive in my book. I love it, but I think it is literally blended together from the most intense barrels that they have that are 10 years old and older to just be this thing that when you open it in a bar, you could be sat 100 feet away. It's a big bar, but as soon as the barman pops the cork on that, you can instantly smell it. And you'll love it or hate it, you'll stay or you'll move seats. I love it. The first time I tried it, I kind of thought, why would anyone want to drink this? But now I own more peated whiskey than any other type of Scotch whiskey. So, palates change. So Laphroaig 10 is made to be intense. This at cask strength is almost a different type of whiskey. It smells wonderfully sweet. It's not as intense as the ABV would give off. And it has so much flavour to it that it's kind of difficult to think it would just be a typical Laphroaig. But it just goes to show what kind of stuff they've got sitting in their warehouses. Cask strength Islay whiskey is some of the best. Like cask strength Kalila, cask strength Laphroaig. Anything Bowmore do that's cask strength has my thumbs up because I love it, and anything that Bunnahabhain do that's cask strength, I'm right behind that as well, as you all know from past videos. But we'll stop talking, we'll smell it, we'll taste it, and we'll see what you think. Fizzes the nose, as you would expect, at just under 59%. But there's loads of sweetness in it. More sweetness than I've got from some of the bourbons that I've reviewed recently. There's this huge hit of toffee, like Highland toffee, fudge, like cream toffee, creme caramel, white chocolate, hazelnuts. Those two I get particularly with Kalila and Laphroaig every day. Every Kalila and Laphroaig I smell, I always get white chocolate and hazelnuts. It must just be something within their distillates that has that going on. It doesn't really scream medicinal. It doesn't scream Laphroaig 10, it doesn't scream classic Laphroaig. It has a delicate amount of smoke to it, almost like a hickory, like barbecue, wood charry kind of smoke. Like with the Elsa Bay a couple of weeks ago, it sort of touches into medicinal, it kind of dips its toe in there, but it is not an offensively medicinal product. There's a bit of smoke, just to kind of bring you in, like seasoning on food, like a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, just to make everything kind of pleasant and welcoming. But oddly enough, my overall nose is sweetness. Quite a lot of sweetness with this. It's becoming slightly more exotic the longer it's been in glass. Again, it's that kind of like pineapple vibe to it. We know that Laphroaig use a lot of ex-Maker's Mark barrels, so maybe that white chocolate note, almost like a coffee note, is maybe coming from those old Maker's casks, because I get that from those a lot. But anyway, overall sweet, not that smoky, with a little bit of fizz. Let's taste it. Is there bang in the book? Well, there's the ABV. Palate's like overly sensitive at the minute to like really strong whiskies. I've not been drinking as much as normal. That sounds bad. I've just been taking it easy a little bit. So at the start, pretty much similar to the nose, quite a lot of sweetness. In fact, my initial taste when it hit my tongue was treacle tart. Pastry, like kind of crystallized sugary pastry, sticky, thick kind of treacle toffee. Then the booze comes in. And I suppose it'd be wrong to have a note that wasn't slightly offensive with Laphroaig, but it's still kind of welcoming because you expect it with the brand. There is this huge hit of spice. It's mainly alcohol spice. There's a little bit of oak influence in it, but it's mainly just booze. And it's kind of slapping you around the face going, it was sweet, but now we're kind of dealing with the big profile. So the American barrels are out of the way, and now we're dealing with this huge intensity of alcohol. Then it dies down again. Then the treacle tart thing comes back, loads of white chocolate, loads of kind of dry, nutty flavors like pecan, almonds, hazelnuts, moves into bitter, the kind of earthy, bitter nuttiness. Again, I got this note with Old Forester Statesman, and I got this note years ago with like Jack Daniel's Sinatra, the first release of it. Almost like a sweet potato-y kind of note. Again, earthy, sweet, soily, rich. A lot going on. And then as you swallow it, the sides of your tongue go super dry, and the spice kind of arrives again as like the final warning to say, you know, this is Laphroaig Cask Strength. Do be careful, it is a powerful product. It might seem sweet, but it does have a little bit of bite to it. We'll try it once more, and then we'll give you a final verdict. Okay, there's the medicinal bit. On the second try, instead of getting the spice on the second part of the swallowing, that classic dry Laphroaig medicinal sticking plaster TCP dental office scary flavour comes back. I love it. I get why people don't like it because it's so divisive. That's probably the most said phrase in all of whiskey, right? But then it comes in and that dryness follows with that medicinal nature. And it's almost welcoming, it's almost like a nice hug, because for people who love Laphroaig, you love that style. I really do. But overall, really, quite sweet. Not what I was expecting. I bought this bottle a month ago, roughly. About a quarter of it's gone. So it's had some good oxidization occurring to it. But I did not expect the level of sweetness. The previous ones have been more medicinal, more dry, more spicy. Or I should say more medicinal, drier and spicier, for people who want to kind of correct me on grammar and things. But this one's overriding flavour is really sweet, treacle tart, white chocolate, nuts, caramels. Quite unusual, not at all what I was expecting, but still very interesting. Unfortunately with that price increase and the slight change in the bottle design, this used to be red, this little stripe, but it's now green, so it looks more like the regular 10. I feel like that's quite deliberate, maybe just to throw people off a little bit, to make sure it doesn't stand out as much on a shelf. But with a slight price increase and the unusual element of sweetness in it, not that I dislike it, but I would like a more balance of the smoke and the sweetness. Previous ones have always got 10s, just straight down. This doesn't quite reach that. As unctuous and hedonistic as the sweetness is, it's a bit too much, and I would prefer a better balance of, there's loads of spice, but more smoke, even if it's just like a lighter style of smoke. So I think it still gets a really good score. It's still like a 9, so it's not exactly a bad whiskey in any means. But batch 11 of this year's release, which is batch 11, if you're a Laphroaig fan, it's not that typical. It's really sweet, but it is something different if you have previous batches and just want to try something, different, because not every batch is always going to be the same, as we know. So a pleasant surprise, a little bit unusual at the same time, but still a very, 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 very good whiskey at 9 out of 10. So I'm Phil, this is the Whiskey Shop in Manchester. That is a 9 out of 10 for batch 11 of Laphroaig Cask Strength. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next week.